Hey, Chamber members, Alan Waters here, your Director of Marketing and Communications and the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce and your Words of Wisdom podcast. And today I am joined by
Janelle Anderson.
Welcome, Janelle. This is fourth time on the show, right? Correct?
I think so.
All right. So as we go in here, obviously we've talked about success. We've talked about all of those things. So I don't want to talk about that as much as I want to look at, we are in fourth quarter of this year. We are rolling into 2025, and something that we do here at the Chamber, I think a lot of businesses do around this time, but also we all tend to do on the personal side is reflections, planning for resolutions, perfect opportunities for next year. So I want to talk about that on the coaching side and say, how are you sitting down right now for both yourself on the personal and business side and going, what's my plan for next year?
Actually, I haven't started doing that yet.
Fair.
But usually what I always spend time, I think a lot of people do this, spend time thinking about what's my word for next year, what's my focus. And then when I'm looking at what I want to accomplish or my goals, I always do like a big year goal, but then I always do the quarterly goals. I always use a quarterly planner. I find like if I break that down into just quarters and that's all I'm looking at, that first quarter, I get a lot more done, and then break it down from there. So usually there's a theme and a big goal, and then I start looking at the first quarter, then the second quarter. I even have a calendar where I plan out all of my events that are coming up and my marketing plan. I make sure all that's, you got to start that early. I'm already working on my February summit. So
right. That's something that Christina, when she was on, we talked about a lot, and the fact that if you're not already looking ahead, by the time you get there, you're behind.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like this time of year in particular, obviously it's something that we all think about. I know that right now, as of the recording date, it's Halloween, so everybody's focused on that, which means the stores are already focusing on Christmas, which means that really all the sales and all those pieces are focused on next year. And I find resolutions interesting because to me, a resolution is the opposite of a goal. I'm the person I get every year. It's like, all right, what are my resolutions going to be? To me, those are things that are almost built to not be sustainable. What is your thought on resolutions in that regard?
Yeah, I agree with you. And most of the time it does something, I think it flips something in our brain to be like, well, I've made this resolution, which means I'm probably not going to keep it. And I'm already defeated before I've even started.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to look at, more about, who do I want to become? What do I want to achieve? And what are the steps I need to take to make that happen? And, what do I need to put in place? And, what's getting in my way? And that kind of thing. So that I'm looking forward to, reaching that goal or becoming who I want to become. And I've got actions in place, and I'm not just setting myself up for failure by just saying, this resolution that doesn't really fit in with the bigger picture. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes I think resolutions, people just sort of pick them out of the air and say, okay, I'm going to make this resolution.
Yeah, there's that. And I mean, one, I'd love to talk to a gym owner or something along those lines, because on the opposite, I feel like resolutions for a gym owner, it's a great thing. Because, I mean, how many people are coming in January 1st and there until January 6th, and then you don't see them again?
Yeah.
So I also think with a part of this, it is learning year after year how to set a goal that is manageable and not just that, but scalable. I had a conversation last night with a group of potential new business owners, and I talked a lot about finances and scaling and those things, but I think it applies to your goals too. You've been doing this long enough. I'm sure along the way you've had some ideas and goals that you were like, this will be great, and never worked out.
Oh yeah.
How has that guided how you sit down and you make a goal in general?
Well, I don't know. I think that we're always learning, and I don't a lot of times people set a goal, it doesn't work out, and then they feel defeated and they feel like they failed. And that keeps them from making maybe the next goal, or it really crushes their confidence. So yeah, definitely I've had lots of goals that didn't pan out, but I always like to step back, look at them and say, well, what worked? What didn't work? What about that wasn't? It's all about alignment. It's what's in alignment with you, what you're wanting to do and accomplish, and who you are, and what your passions are, and how you're serving your people, and then make sure that those goals you're setting for yourself are in alignment with that. Because I think I know for me, I've set goals before that I thought, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, or this is what, the industry says, or this is what somebody else is doing. And then I don't reach it because it's not really in alignment. Right. So, but even if it is in alignment with where you're trying to go and it doesn't work out, then, I like to take a look at it, learn from it, figure out how do I need to adjust that. So, so I can take from that so-called failure and turn it into, something good, right? A place of growth, a place of learning. And, so.
I'm pretty sure I've said it on the show before, but I'm a big believer that it's not failure until you stop. Because, and I said this last night when I was talking to those, my first company I look back on, I told them, I said, I financed that with personal credit cards. Wouldn't recommend it because I had something that was out of my control. Ended up the show closed after one weekend because the alcohol ordinances changed in the town. And we were doing a drunk Shakespeare show. It's hard to do that without the alcohol. And I said, I could have walked away and just been defeated and never gone back to it. But instead I learned, great, if I'm putting too many of my eggs in one basket, and something like that happens, I'm going to be in trouble. I think the same thing when we're setting our goals, that it is great to look at certain pieces and go, it's going to be this. But if you're not able to make adjustments as you go, or see certain things and go, all right, I will fail if I don't make adjustments. You're going to be setting up. I think we joked on the episode with Tessa. I said, if we all had the same goal we had when we were kids, we'd be princesses, cops, astronauts, those things. So
true.
As you're looking into that, how are you also balancing this is my personal or this is my professional goal versus this is my financial goal? Because I also think people get in trouble when they set their goals fully based on, I have to make X amount of dollars.
Sure. Yeah.
Especially last minute. Because I marketing, you mentioned that earlier. If you market with the mindset of, if I don't make this money back, it's lost, it's wasted potential. Yeah. I don't think necessarily you're looking at marketing in the correct way.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. So, I mean, definitely having a financial goal is important. But if that's the only thing you're basing it on, then you're going to find yourself frustrated, probably unhappy at some point. And even if you make the goal, if you're just creating another job for yourself that's not fulfilling to make that goal, then, you're going to be unhappy. So, I always work with my coaches. I help coaches build their business, and we set goals. In fact, we just onboarded 2 new members, and that's what we were talking about just yesterday. And, some of the goals are, yes, I want to make a certain amount of money in the next year, but probably the most important goals they were setting were things like, how do I best serve my people? And, how do I find my people? And what do I want to create for them? And all of that, especially for coaching or any kind of helping industry and serving, is that it's going to bring in the money. But you do have to know, like, where the money's going to come from. If you have a certain financial goal, well, how many clients do you need? What do you need in place to reach that? Where's all the money going to come from to plan it out? And a lot of coaches don't do that, but so that you have, it's realistic, right? So I know a lot of people that I've worked with have set goals that were for the next year kind of really unrealistic when you get down to the, how am I going to get there? So I think it's, how am I going to bring in the money that I want, but how am I doing that in alignment again and serving my audience and staying in that place that I'm going to be fulfilled and passionate and, serving at my best and doing what I'm called to do as well. I mean, reaching that financial goal is not the end of all,
Right. Yes, of course you have bills to pay, not saying that, because to me, paying the bills is a part of a business expense. I told people last night with scaling, especially as a new business, as a small business, there's a while before you may take a paycheck. For me, I always plan that it's between year 3 and year 5 before I'd see a paycheck or sorry, I take that back, to see a profit. Yeah. Because when I'm going to use the coffee shop, when we were there, for example, we paid ourselves, if we worked 8 hours in the coffee shop and otherwise an employee would be there, we were paid $15 an hour, just like they would be. But then we had, after the fact, all the expenses paid in those pieces. And I was like, great, we can scale along with this. We didn't make it to year 3 or 5 for that. But like with other pieces, I've seen the same thing. I also think as you're scaling and you're going with that, it's looking, like you said, sustainable. If you charge $5,000 a month for your services and you have every single week, every single weekend booked and you've got a client for all of that, and let's say it's 5 clients at $1,000 a piece, and then you turn around and you have 2 clients that are paying $2,500 a piece, you've opened up, you're still the same amount of money you're making, you'll just have more time to be focused on different things. And I think that's something you have to look at too, because I'd love to be the busiest in the world, I'd love to make $1 million. Am I willing to give up the time that it's going to take to do that? And as a small business owner, can I give up the time of physically being the person to do those things versus, great, now I'm talking to Janelle to work on my next client. So I think that's when you're looking at goals and financial goals, as well as making sure you're setting yourself up that you're not undergrowing or overgrowing, because to me that can spell failure as well. Not that you can't learn from it. I told someone, I was like, to me, failure is the best teacher, but I don't want you to go through it. I'll tell you how I failed, so hopefully you won't have to fail that way, but you're going to fail at something. That's a part of the process.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us a little bit more, for those who have not heard any of your other episodes, about Janelle and about Emerging Life Coaching. Yeah,
so I'm a coach. I've been coaching for 10 years. This is my 10-year anniversary month, October. Awesome. And what I do now is different than what I started doing, but I work with other coaches who are just starting, or they're maybe in their first 3 years or so of business, and help them to do the business side of coaching, establish their structure around their business and a foundation. I call it a platform. The programs that they create and how they attract their clients, like the whole path. Because usually coaches start off just trying to find that next client, and that's not sustainable. And they struggle, maintaining an income, and it's not enough to support them, and they're just looking for that next client, and there's kind of this desperation, like, I got to find that next client. So I help them create the bigger picture of, how I call it the client journey, like how people find you, what's the first thing that you can serve them with, what's the next step for them, and ultimately what is the deepest level of work that you want to do with a client, and what is that higher end package. You're talking about scaling, you have to have a higher end package, especially as a coach, because you're not going to be able to create a sustainable business with one-on-one coaching and just trying to find that next client. So you have to have a plan, you have to have it mapped out, a business map, so to speak. And how do I best serve my clients? What is that higher end, year long, where I'm really working with people at a deeper level kind of package look like, and then work backwards from there. So that's what I do with coaches. I also help them to the way that I help them to start really bringing in their clients is through speaking and running their own events, because you get a group of people in front of you and make your offer, and you learn how to make the offer through the workshop or whatever that you're doing. And then you get more clients at one time. So you're not doing the one at a time. And then finding those places to speak could be in front of different groups or on podcasts or summits or, but creating their own events as well. And then that's their marketing strategy. They can promote it with promotional partners and things like that. So that's what I help them to start to see, like the bigger picture. It's not just, most new coaches will say to me, I just want to coach. I don't want to market and I don't want to sell. And then my question is, well, how are you going to find the clients?
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing.
And I think that's a great question. And we're going to go into a quick break. But when we get back, I want to break that down more because where do you find the clients is such a good question.
Yeah.
Create your own platform with Emerging Life Coaching. Janelle Anderson and Emerging Life Coaching helps coaches, authors, speakers, and program leaders to create and host simple, profitable virtual events so they can build prosperous, thriving businesses. You have a massive impact to make in the world, and you need your own platform from which to share your powerful message. It all starts with believing in you. Believing in your message, your expertise, your voice, your talent, your knowledge, and your experience. Believing in the fact that what you bring to your clients changes their lives for the better and in massive ways. To learn more about this program and how to create your own platform with Emerging Life Coaching, visit emerginglifecoaching.com. That's emerginglifecoaching.com. Now, back to the episode. All right, we're back, and the question, where do I find the next client? So I met with a member here recently, and not going to name any names or talk any detail about what they were going through, but one of the things they mentioned is they've got a really good marketing channel on social media. They were like, I'm not worried about it. We've had multiple times where we've almost gone viral, and we've gotten out there, have a really great following. The problem is they don't have people walking in the door. They're a business that obviously she's not reliant on the fact that people have to walk in the door. She said she's got a great clientele, but as a business owner, she would be missing out if she didn't acknowledge the fact that she's got a whole potential revenue stream, a whole marketing stream of that foot traffic that she's not accessing right now. And I think that takes a lot of forethought to be able to say, well, it's fantastic that I'm doing so well with this marketing channel. I need to look at others. And I think a lot of what you were just talking about is that in itself. Someone put it to me in a case group. It might have been the group you were in at the time. They said, I've been fishing with a pole. I need to fish with a net. So talk to me a little bit about when you're going through and someone's doing a seminar, someone's doing a speech, someone's doing a webinar. What are the things that you're doing to make sure that and forgive me if you disagree, as you're going through some of that is going to be a sales pitch, how do you make sure that you are making it touch multiple people in the room without getting too specific? And how do you also make sure that it feels genuine? It feels like a piece of that versus it feels like I'm Billy Mays here. How do you keep those things separate?
Well, there is an art to it for sure. How you plan the event from beginning to end really is you start with the offer. You start with whatever your call to action is going to be, and then you reverse engineer it so that it does feel like a very smooth path from beginning to end, and the people don't feel like you just did a bait and switch on them. So the whole event or talk that you're giving is seeding along the way what you're about to offer, so that the people, it makes sense to people that, oh yeah, you've given me some really great ideas here, but now I see how I need your services, right? And so it becomes more of an invitation and a natural flow into the invitation to work with you.
Yeah.
And not everybody will, of course, but then so many times, people are thinking about the content that they're teaching or that they're sharing as, wanting to give value and wanting to give people something that's going to help them, but then it doesn't match with the offer. And so then it kind of feels awkward and strange when you make the offer. So there is an art to planning that out. And another way to really touch, you're talking about touching everyone in the room or most of the people in the room, is that you need to think about your talk, your presentation or your event that you're hosting as a story, like it's a story from beginning to the end, and sharing stories that relate to the people sitting in the room, and making sure that the story itself is going to touch them on an emotional level and touch them at a place where they feel like, oh, that story's about me. Even though it might be a story about you, but it's really about them. It's all about them. And so even if there's some people in the room that are not at a right place to hire you or aren't your ideal clients, they'll still be moved by the story and brought into it. And, stories touch people on such a heart level, right? And can keep them engaged, and then everybody feels like they're involved, they're engaged,
right,
and not kind of like left out. So stories are super important for that purpose too. And then as you're sharing the offer, it needs to come from an authentic place. It needs to come from a place of you really being passionate and excited about what you're offering, believing in what you're offering, that it is going to make a difference in people's lives, and really being excited about it and sharing it from that place, and not from a place of like, I need yours.
Right.
I need your money.
This,
I need your sale.
The feeling of trying to tell people I believe in this without believing in it, and those pieces.
Yeah. People can pick up on that if it's not authentic.
Absolutely. And I think it comes back to some of those pieces I mentioned earlier with marketing. It's analytics. Just like I have to look at with social media, it's if we spent $200 on our buy local ad on social media, and then out of that 200, it meant, and these aren't the real numbers, but if it meant we reached 100,000 people on Facebook, that doesn't mean 100,000 people are going to come. Right. It means that out of that 100,000, maybe 1,000 are going to actually interact and do something. Out of that 1,000, any percentage between like this or that could come. It doesn't mean 100,000 people are going to be there. I think you have to think about it in the same way for everything. And it doesn't always mean it's a 1-for-1 match. You're not going to necessarily spend the $200 and make $200. Sometimes it's, I spent $200, I made $100, and then I met somebody who has become a really good confidant and has relied or referred a client or two to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think context goes into, and it kind of bringing us full circle. It's the same thing with resolutions. You can be incredibly resolute in the fact that you're going to do this thing. If you don't have the other pieces there to help support, if you don't create the habit, if you don't have the time and you're setting something that's going to be a goal that takes more time, you're not setting it up. You have to look at all the factors.
Yeah, that's true.
So as we're getting to the end of the year again, looking at the personal side as well, I think there's a huge amount of this time of year that is meant to be joyful, but because something's meant to be joyful doesn't always mean it is. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of burnout. I don't know about y'all, but every time I look at the bill for Christmas, I get scared. So it's one of those things. How do you think people need to take care of themselves so that they can take care of their business?
That's a really good question. It's easy to get burnt out for entrepreneurs and business owners. For me, I work from home, so it's really easy to just keep working. And I have to really intentionally put time into my day, even on my calendar. This is when I'm going to go take a walk, or this is when I'm going to do a workout or go spend time with friends. You really need to do that, because if you don't, you're not going to have the energy, and it could, harm your health, and you're not going to show up 100% for your people when you need to. So I think, part of it is really being intentional. how do I take care of myself? How do I make sure I'm getting enough sleep and I'm hydrating and I'm eating well and I'm even like going out and socializing? That I never would have thought would have been something I had to really sit down and plan and be intentional about. But if I don't, I'll just keep working.
Yeah.
I will work 24/7 because it's so easy to just, I'm sitting at my computer and I there's always something to do.
Absolutely.
Right?
I can think back to COVID when we had nowhere else to go, and I'd be working on projects, and it would be great. Over the next 4 to 5 days, I'm going to work basically 20 hours a day. I slept in our little office studio. I had a blow up air mattress. Rachel was gone for the summer, so I slept there, would wake up and edit and go back. That's not healthy. It's not good for you in the slightest.
No. There'll be days and days that I don't even leave the house, and I'm like, I haven't been out of this house in 3 days now. So I need to get out. I need to call somebody and say, let's go have coffee. And it's crazy that is not, it used to be just part of your day or you just spontaneously do it. But now it's like, for me, it's like, I've got to plan it out. And when am I going to do that? It's on my calendar. Because if I don't, I won't. And the other strange thing, you're talking about COVID and people being used to being home, being on Zoom all the time. Yeah. Well, I was on Zoom long before COVID. So, for 10 years, a lot of my business has been online. I have clients all over the world. And so I feel like, and I have communities that I'm a part of that meet on Zoom. And I feel like they become my friends. So I feel like I have a social life, but it's all online and on Zoom, which isn't healthy either.
Right.
I mean, it's good to have that, but you need real friends. You need friends.
And
things, in person. Yeah. So I just came back from a conference where I got to see the people that I usually see on Zoom in person and hug them. And it was just we were talking about how much better it is, to have that person to person in person interaction and how important that is. So, just even getting out and going to church or coming to a case group meeting, which, I haven't been able to do in a long time. And it's just like, okay, I have to really plan that out. And so I think, keeping yourself connected to other people, keeping your relationships healthy and strong is a big part of keeping you healthy so that your business doesn't suffer.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, it's really good in going back to setting goals and those things to look at. These are my personal goals. These are my professional goals. These are my family goals. These are my relationship goals. And giving yourself the leeway to say, all right, great. Sometimes my personal goals are going to take precedence over my professional. Sometimes it's going to be a different mix and match. Because, I'm going into a time where in beginning of next year, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of planning because I know come March, whenever Rachel has baby, it's going to immediately turn into, great, here's my focus, and I'm not going to be present or around much. And I don't think anybody should feel guilty for those things. So as we get here to the end, and as I've been pseudo trash talking resolutions this entire time, I want to talk about your final reflections back on this past year, how you started off the year with those goals and how you're ending off, and what are those not resolutions, but what are those goals for next year?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that we are talking about the end of the year already. It feels like it was a minute.
It does.
So I'm really happy with what I've done this year. One of my biggest goals was this new event that I started this past year, and really kind of nailing that and refining it so that it is a really great event and it does what it's supposed to do. And I feel like I did it 4 times this year, and the 4th one I just did a couple weeks ago actually, and it was the best one. Had the best results. It was the most fun to deliver and host, and I had an amazing team, and I'm feeling really great about that going now into next year. Now I feel like I've got it where it needs to be. So that was a huge one. But then it's, making really great connections with, I feel like I've stepped into another level of my connections, the type of people that I'm connecting with. So I really feel like this year has been a pivotal year in scaling, actually, not just money-wise, but relationship-wise, and invisibility, and people knowing who I am. And so those were my goals, really. And now reflecting on that, I'm like, that was great. Now let's take that and grow it, add to my own team. I have one VA, so I'm looking at adding more, and getting increasing social media presence, because that's one area I'm not great at. And I'm like, I'm just going to hire somebody, because, and growing my mastermind group from the event that I've now created. And that's where I bring them in. That's where people get into my mastermind, which is helping coaches build their business. So I feel like, it was from idea to, now I've got it. That's pretty much what this year was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you build on that then? So what's next?
Well, next is I've met some really great collaborative partners that have bigger audiences that they will promote me as I promote them. So that brings in more people registered for the events that I'm doing, more people showing up. Like you were talking about the numbers, if you have 200 registered, you're probably going to get about 50 or 60 showing up. So I want to increase that.
Yeah.
And also the other way that I want to really grow what I've accomplished is getting on more stages. I'm really looking at like more in-person stages and just refining that talk that I give. At the conference I was just at, there were several speakers, and they are what's called sponsored speakers. So they pay to play. They pay to sponsor the event, and then they get a speaking spot, and they can sell their program. But it just multiplies basically what you're doing because of the exposure that you get. So I was sitting there looking at them thinking, I want to be one of them next year. Speaking at these bigger events and playing with the bigger people that have the bigger crowds, I guess. So
we hope to check back in next year and do that. Where can people find more information about Janelle and Emerging Life Coaching? Yeah,
so they can find information about me on my website, which is emerginglifecoaching.com. Also, I have an app, and it's called Emerging Life Coaching. And my app has a lot of resources on it. And you can also look it up online, emerginglifecoach.com. And that's like a website that mirrors my app. So there's a lot of great stuff on there. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and Alignable.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here and talking to us today. Fourth time, that's been great this year. Thank you, everybody, for checking in and listening. We'll be back to you soon. In the meantime, please go out, invest, connect, engage, and prosper.